You're listening to the Behind the Cover podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Shure, the premier choice for affordable, durable, and exceptional sounding microphones. With almost a century of microphone design legacy, Shure is committed to delivering immersive sound experiences that resonate with professionals and enthusiasts alike. Whether it's audio production, podcasting, live performances, conferencing, or any form of content creation, Shure is your go-to brand for high-stakes moments, offering reliability and excellence in sound.
This is the August 1990 issue of Rolling Stone Australia with Kate Ceberano on the cover. And it's titled Behind Bedroom Eyes, The Real Kate Ceberano, and it is written by Kate Ceberano. Asked to write this piece to accompany Grant Matthews' beautiful photography, not to mention the cute chick in the shots, I asked Rolling Stone just one question. Why? Surely, after the several hundred interviews that I've encountered over the past 6 years, the Australian public would already know enough about Kate Ceberano, from my forehead right down to my frosty pink toenails. Thank you, Stephen Price. But it seems not. Rolling Stone wants the real Kate, the real me, from my most saintly philosophical views down to the hardcore dirt. Shall I oblige and probably ruin any kind of mystique that one tries so hard to maintain in this industry? Or shall I simply lie down in the bath, close my eyes, and pretend that I am someone or something else and just make it all up? Well, I'll just waffle on, and at the end you can decide whether or not I'm utterly adorable or simply a lying wanker, okay? The theme, prompted, I might add, by the magazine, was meant to be bravery. But because I felt that was a tad too obvious for me, I decided to include a few other issues: women, sexuality, and my role as an opinion shaper in the Australian music industry, all of which may be somewhat controversial. For hundreds of years, the actual shape of women and people's perception of these shapes has constantly been changing, from fat to skinny, from ugly to beautiful. How these have been perceived has been influenced by the times. But something that has never changed is the basic nature of women. Women have many great qualities: openness, compassion, strength, purpose. And if a lot of these have been taken advantage of, then men are not wholly to blame. I believe that, ultimately, we ourselves are responsible for the way we are perceived. Therefore, we must be responsible for our own actions and not compromise ourselves. It was funny. You see, about a year ago, I was invited to join Jane Fonda, Jana Wendt, and Janine Haynes, all very powerful women who have become opinion shapers in their industries, on a talk show hosted by Ray Martin. During this show, I realized that my generation has had so few problems, comparatively speaking, with regards to the battle of the sexes, that these women had set such a fine precedent that the choices for women today are practically limitless. I have never felt constrained or limited by men in my lifetime, or the need to compromise in order to succeed, and I thank these women for that. However, there was something that irked me a little in that meeting, and it was that these women often refer to men in an aggressive way, immediately setting themselves up in opposition to them. I, personally, don't think that this is very modern. I don't think women need to be that defensive in order to be strong and determined. My experiences over the past 10 years in the Australian music industry have educated me greatly with regard to chauvinism. Chauvinism still exists today, but it's slowly changing. I think there's really one or two chauvinists in this large industry, the sort who have fond, archaic memories of an all-male industry and who would quietly prefer to have kept it that way. But with quiet perseverance and the dedication our country's female artists, we shall soon boot these boys off their perch and all flourish and prosper as equal artists. My views on sexuality are really very simple. Any person can be sexy or hot, as the catchphrase goes. Aside from the obvious, I find the most unusual elements in people sexy. For instance, I find the arch in Brigitte Bardot's foot sexy, and I find my boyfriend's teeth are enormously sexy, yet he hates them. I think Kevin Costner's mouth is sexy. Any belly buttons are really sexy. And random spending and long-haired boys shaving their heads are a few more sexy things that come to mind. But then, for me, The comedian Jerry Lewis was the epitome of the sexy icon when I was young. In relation to my own sexuality, I see myself as a sensual 50s-style woman of shapely dimensions. I've always behaved, publicly, as if I were acting a role, creating a character. I think that people don't really want to know that I feel I have faults. I see myself as someone from the outside. And from that viewpoint, I can be in control. I don't know why. That's just the way it is. As a prominent artist in Australia, I am constantly asked about my views on current world issues, especially environment ones. I feel that it is important for me to take responsibility and research the urgency and importance of these situations, as should we all. We are all responsible. I admit that in the past, I have not had enough information, but I am clearly on the side that chooses life over death. Furthermore, I feel that the groups that support such issues must not target allies, such as opinion shapers or artists. Instead, they should attack the people or corporate structures who are directly responsible for the willful destruction of our planet and get them to face their responsibilities. If we could just look to and create for the future, rather than just for today, then we would be on the way to getting a more ideal scene happening. That's really the type of attitude I support. Love, Kate Ceberano. Welcome to the Behind the Rolling Stone cover podcast, where we delve into the stories behind the iconic covers that have graced the pages of Rolling Stone. Today, we have an Australian music legend joining us whose career has spanned over 4 decades. She is a multi-talented singer, songwriter, an actress, author, a visual artist. The word prolific gets used a lot when critics talk about this artist, and the phrase boundary pushing has been well earned. 11 top 10 albums, 15 top 40 singles, a career that spans 40 years, and one that has turned a lot of heads when she graced the August 1990 cover of Rolling Stone Australia for the Hot issue. Kate Ceberano, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, I'm of an age now where nostalgia is something I embrace, because it used to be like for a couple of decades there, you deflect your former image of who you were and you're trying to out-innovate yourself. But now, looking back, and it's 4 decades past this, I'm loving it. I'm looking at it going, oh, isn't she beautiful? Oh, isn't that lovely? Oh my God, look at that.
Oh, what do you remember about this cover shoot? Because, and was it a cover shoot? Where did the photos come from?
Well, they shot for it from memory. They shot for it, which was pretty exciting to me that I was going to be in the Rolling Stone, because I guess, I don't even know. I guess at this age, I just turned, 23? Is that right? Something like that. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But having been in the business already for about 8 years, I'd to date had only been in street mags, and the Rolling Stone was like the kind of apex of all of those music magazines. If you could get on that, then somehow that kind of equaled you to every other Rolling Stone magazine globally. So it was like coming from Northbourne, doing all the street mags, all the local mags, and suddenly you're in this kind of international community.
And what did they say about the cover shoot concept? Did they say, you've got...
No, and I'll tell you something. I think that these things, they kind of, the narrative of how a woman in music is then versus women in music today, these things were very driven by my own interests. Like, I was very much into Fellini, Italian sort of art films and French art films, and, whether it was La Dolce Vita or early Sophia Loren, there were a beautiful series of Marilyn Monroe shots. Then later was then transferred into In Bed with Madonna. These were driven by we women. They weren't done to us. So I definitely was deep diving into that kind of feeling for myself. I was like, welcome to the intimate community of me and my bath, and me in a towel with nothing else between you and me. But the only regret I have about it is in the bath.
Why? What's wrong with the bit?
There is a famous movie where an actress, Julie Christie from the 60s, right? It's a famous movie. It's set in Russia, and, like, people have loved this film. And she said, my only regret is that rather than letting my hair be natural, I wore very couteured wigs because it's the only thing that ages the film. And when I look at myself in the bath, I just wish that I had, rather than fucking around with my hair and put a wig on, I would have just let my hair be natural.
Oh,
and
or perhaps wet look even.
Even just whatever. I would rather have been just more natural than because to that effect it seems too stagey for me, and the whole coy knee over the kind of minge kind of thing and the hand across the boob. I just, it wasn't being rock and roll enough for me. It just seemed a bit coy. That wasn't what I wanted to do in the bath, as it turns out. It's not what I wanted to do. I would have much rather it had been more like Whoopi Goldberg in the bath, where, or even Deborah Conway on the cover of her amazing album, where she's like, you know, she's completely naked and covered in chocolate. These are all, they're all that's a narrative driven by her imagination, as it would be for me in the bath. I would have loved for it just to have been a bit more kind of earthy and
Stripped bare,
probably.
literally. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like you get that with this cover photo though.
Really?
I feel it's very natural. There's minimal makeup.
Yeah.
Your hair feels like you could have just woken up and chucked it into a bun.
Yeah, maybe that would have been what I would have preferred, to have just thrown myself into the bath from that place rather than staging it and getting a little bit too stagey. But that's just me. I'm forever art directing my experience in life based on, you know, movies mostly. So like I definitely, as a musician, I've definitely tuned in as a musician from movies. And there was an era in musical theatre, like where there were films being made like Sweet Charity and, you know, Shirley MacLaine was playing the happy hooker, and there was Belle de Jour, which was this amazing French film, which again was all about, and I don't know, I was trying to make music that was kind of boudoir music, jazz and funk and soul that was a bit sexy. This was what I was into.
And you were doing it all at the same time. You were launching your jazz career at the same time as you were a mainstream top 40 artist. Like,
yeah, you know, being a kid from the suburbs, it wasn't about when or how. It was mostly that if you could think it and you could just demonstrate, you know, through your own, the way you clothed yourself or the way you found yourself editorially speaking in photographs, or you could just project whichever image you wanted to, and we could just leave the girl from Ballin behind. And that's kind of what I was trying to do.
and you mentioned that in this story, actually. Yeah, you talk about, you know, projecting. I actually want to take you back on.
I haven't read it in 40 years.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, the beautiful thing, I love that you said that you like to art direct, because this is not a typical cover story where it's written about you. You were asked to pen a letter, and so you were the director of this piece. So can I read an excerpt from you and take you on a bit of time travel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, obviously, you talk about feminism, you talk about the need not to see men as opponents, you talk about the importance of future thinking, which is still very much you now, and of course, sex and sexuality. And on sexuality, you said, in relation to my own sexuality, I see myself as a sensual 50s-style woman of shapely dimensions. I've always behaved publicly as if I were acting a role, creating a character. I think that people don't really want to know that I feel I have faults. I see myself as someone from outside, and from that viewpoint, I can be in control. I don't know why. That's just the way it is.
Holy shit. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'd almost write that word for word now today if I were asked about myself.
Yeah.
Well, that's there's got to be some kind of credit to that integrity. I was speaking as myself, and I'm speaking similar sort of tones today. I actually yesterday I did a shoot for a film about live music, and they were asking me they were kind of driving me into a narrative about being a woman in music. And clearly, even back then, even with the Stones, like writing an article about this, I didn't feel pegged in by my gender. I wasn't, identified by it within music. I was actually being an artist, exploring the what ifs and kind of deep diving into my imagination. And your imagination is so private, and it's your playground. You should have free access to control and to exercise your right to play other people. Like David Bowie was a big inspiration to me. Kate Bush also. I could feel that they had fallen over backwards over a cliff and they were flying in a way that was so private and so free. I just felt that if I could just own that space and just use that space, I would never, ever have to feel trapped.
Oh, I love that. And you were so true and clear about your personal brand of feminism, because there's a part in it where you talk about you were asked to speak, I believe there was a meeting or a panel with Jane Fonda, and you say in it that you were thankful for the doors that these women had opened for you, but also you felt quite distant from their brand of feminism, which felt quite aggressive towards men, because that's not the type of feminist that you are. Neither with me, actually.
It's kind of, isn't it amazing how life is lived in a circular space? Like you start from zero and you head on out and, you're thinking, and by thinking, you're sort of applying yourself to a path of your invention. You're thinking your path and you walk, and then discover that all roads lead back to yourself. So I think in that moment, what you just told me is exactly what I think about feminism today. I think every person's entitled to respond to the world around them and react. I mean, in fact, if they didn't react, you'd be very nervous for their survival. They won't exist or they won't survive well if they don't react. You must react. If a person's in a place that's of danger and imminent danger and violence, and you must react aggressively towards it. You must make changes that stop that immediately and correct that behaviour in others and make the world around you different. But to assume that that's the generality against all humans is an assumption that not only makes it difficult for the generality, let's say the collection of people on the planet called men. Let's just put it that way. I find that it disables and it dishonours the part of men that for the most part is good and for the most part is honourable and for the most part loves women. So, and vice versa. So to make any generality with such a vast sweep based on your soul experience, I think what we need to try to do is we need to at least enlist a safe language that allows us to react and to do the honourable thing to make changes and policies in the world, whilst not making major generalities about whole species of humans. We as musicians, as artists, as painters, we're speaking to the part of all of us. It's the only one single thing, I believe, that's common. And that's that I think that there's a certain kind of humanness that connects us all. You could give it a word, kindness. You could give it a word, heart, spirit, soul. You could give it all these things. In Hawaiian culture, they call it mana.
Mana means pride in Māori.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And that's the word. It's an adjective, it's a noun, it's a verb, it's all things. And mana could be love. And the thing that connects all of us together through love is art. And it's not our skin, it's not our colour, it's not our soft bits. It's that part of us that's connected. And I don't know, I'm really leery to try to put words. Actually, the more I do it, I feel like the whole concept just evaporates.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. And I also think of, if we want to move forward with feminism, we need to bring men on the journey with us.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely, we do.
Also we need them. We need them to stick up for us. We need them to open the door. We need them to make space. And having that combative brand of feminism where all men are bad, all men did this, or stuff men completely. Oh my
Honestly,
God,
I've seen myself do it.
Yeah?
Poppy, I've seen myself do it at a party or something, maybe a bit pissy, and I've made some massive statement. And at the end of the table, I see some sweet guy's face. He looks like a seal that I've just clubbed over the head with some big statement about blah, 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 and
I've painted him with the same brush.
Right? And a part of him in that moment felt it was an indefensible crime for all of his people. I just made him equal to something that he feels vehemently not, and his poor little face. So, no, I am, like you just said that beautifully, I think we need to enlist each other's help to be better people generally.
Because why would you want to help if you're a guy and you see, they don't even want me in that space. Yeah. I'm not invited. Yeah. Why am I going to put my neck out and help? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the question asked of me, it's a question, if I had $1, I might be wealthier than for every song I've sung because I've been asked so often, what's it like to be a woman in music? And I feel like saying, well, we don't ask men of that. Okay, so what are they actually implying? Like there's some distinction between how we integrate into that community. Is there a distinction into the way we? No. I was raised amongst some very strong, some very powerful and some very wounded women, but they would have been the first to tell you it wasn't because of men. They fell on their own swords a lot of the time. They were reaching for things. They were demonstrating power, and the only violent acts that they received were the ones that they had caused themselves, often with drugs and alcohol or various other things. What is true, we're all vulnerable and we're all able to get into that space. Fame is a kind of like it's a double-edged sword. Fame has with it some incredible potent magic, but it also it's a little bit like Mordor. It's that once you touch and taste and sniff and smell it, then you're forever possessed by it. And if you're not careful, you become it. And I think that's true for men and women.
There is an argument to say that falling on their own sword could have been caused by the trauma of what they went through due to the hands of a man or something like that. That
we will never know.
Yeah.
See, that's where to conjecture about where people's trauma comes from is a very dangerous occupation.
That's very true, actually. And how did these conversations happen with you and your daughter Gypsy? Because she is now, and she had a recent showcase in Sydney and Melbourne.
Yeah,
she's in the industry now.
I know.
And you have been through different eras of the industry.
I think that her era is going to be the greatest of all for an artist. Whether she makes it or not is not even a question in our household, because I find that when you sort of add a time or some kind of moment where you go, we've made it now. I mean, I think then it's a very sporting kind of mentality toward art, because I actually think art is something like, okay, the duckling is set across the lake. She's in the lake. She has to sink or swim. And so I would just say to her, just keep swimming, honey, keep swimming. Like, paddle faster, paddle harder, take a breath, sit for a while, just bob in the current. Turn around to the bank if you're feeling a little unsafe.
That's a really great way to empower her.
Yeah.
Because it's empowerment with a safety net, but you're not directly saying, okay, and tomorrow we're going to do this.
Oh, no.
And me and Lee, your dad, who's also manages you, of course, we're going to go and do this and this.
In fact, if anything, I'm very removed from her experience, her day-to-day experience. It's just she's in a management situation with Dad, and the two of them are really tight. It's kind of cute to watch that. But you're right. I know that she will succeed and fail maybe 3 or 8 times a day on different objectives that she might have. But you must know that to get up and to get on with your dreams is all you have that's yours, that's truly yours, and only you can demonstrate your interest in that. Like, no one else can dream for you. No one else can plan for you. No one else can have ambitions for you. That's got to be self-driven. And then every little win then becomes like, ka-ching, it's money in your you just put that little bit of money away and go, I did that, I caused that. She asks, people say, oh, you must give her lots of advice about what to have, what to do. And I think to myself, from an external point of view, that makes sense to me why people would say that. But from an art point of view, it seems ridiculous. It's like walking up to someone's canvas and taking a blob of paint and putting it in a place you think that would improve the art.
I know better. Yeah, no.
Right?
And
can you imagine?
Piece.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine how insulting that? I grant her entire independence from me. I am her and will always obviously be her mother and have all of those parental yearnings for her life and success. But as an artist to artist, I am standing second next to her at the wall, performing our work and putting in our own colours.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
Oh, good.
Yeah. No, I don't, and I don't want any. But I've got 3 beautiful nephews, which I'll take that on board. Empowerment with a safety net. I think I'll do that.
Yeah.
And how does she differ from you when you were coming up? Is there any parts of her character that you're like, oh, I wish I had that when I was in I'm Talking. I wish I had that when, the The labels were flying over from all around the world to try and sign us at that point.
Oh, wow. It was a heady time. We had, just to back on that just for a second, to take that small micro moment of fame when it hits you. That's intoxicating. That is so fucking unreal. There's no way to describe that feeling. We knew we had something that was unique, and we knew we were ourselves completely unique to the Australian landscape, entirely unique. In fact, we were the first to have a woman on the bass, and we loved Talking Heads, and we loved the fact that there were, on that factor, to have musicians who were sort of crossing that divide was pretty outstanding. Up until that stage, my mother was one of the first women in management in the country. And she'd just got my solo career, I think, to 4 times platinum with Brave, and working with Nick Launay. She procured him. He'd just done the Oils, I think, and then he went on to do In Excess, and then he went on to do more punk-related. In fact, I think he's doing Amyl and the Sniffers now. But she had this view of like innovation as well. She's very sharp-minded. So take you to that moment with I'm talking, what is it, I'm 17 or so, and we're breaking. And I felt like we're punching forward with really strong objectives to make art, like a sort of sonic art. And that moment has held stead with me for all of my life. Now, cut to Gypsy. So she's working with a producer, Thrones is his name, and he is he could be Malcolm McLaren for the Sex Pistols. He could be Dave Stewart for Annie Lennox. He could be, he's the guy, the champion, the one that's heard and seen her in the dark. And so the two of them have this profound relationship, and they know they've got a sound that's their own. So regardless of whether it succeeds or not, they've sort of already succeeded because they've found a note, a chord, a sound that is the sound of her heart. And with I'm Talking, it was the same thing. That was the sound of our creative space. It was totally original, and she is totally original in her space. And the rest is in the hands of the gods, you know?
Oh, and it was totally original. Like you looked at, the Melbourne pub rock and rock scene, we had Nick Cave, we had the Models, we had the birthday party, and then I'm Talking came along, just completely changing the game. Like, do you ever think about the impact of that band and how it really changed music in Australia? Like, do you ever sit with that?
Oh, yeah, completely.
Yeah. Good.
So we were listening to, the bands of the time that we loved were, and the 80s was a confluence of some of the coolest art, sonic art that you could have, Ian Dury and the Blockheads, Bob Marley, Stevie Wonder, you had the Specials. When you combine a freedom like that, it's like David Attenborough in the jungle. There's like every animal, there's like, and it's all braying for food, you're all there. We were opening up for acts that were coming out that weren't like us, and you didn't have to be like each other to open for them. Like on the same bill at the George, there would have been, we had New Order, The Cure, Susie Sue and the Banshees, there was us, there were the Divinals, this was an amazing time in Australian music. Countdown, for reasons inexplicable to all rock and roll gods, was the home where international acts would land, and then they would interface with Australian artists. And it was these international artists that were being interviewed by John Paul Young, by Kate Ceberano from I'm Talking. The Mental as Anything was representing Boy George when he first came. And so what you really were seeing was, like Attenborough, you're seeing life in the jungle in real time, and it was exciting, and it was sort of lawless, and there were no rules. There wasn't this kind of like segregation amongst, well, what kind of music do you play? Well, what kind of music do you play? Oh, no, we're not on the same analytics, so we don't really mix. It was like, no, let those fuckers swim in the same pool and they will sink or swim.
How exciting.
Really?
We really need another countdown.
I would dearly love to be Molly Meldrum.
Oh.
I'd love to be Jules Holland, because I reckon I'm neutral enough to cause that creation, like that sort of meaning, that kind of contrast. I would want to have a burgeoning new jazz artist who's sort of someone like Ray, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Next to Emil, with Amy.
That conversation
next to
would be fascinating.
Right? And then next to the Teskey brothers, and next to like a full-on electro. And I reckon then you allow the audience to become educated. They make their own choices and they fall in love, and that love lasts a lifetime. And you get a fan base that's actually honest and real. And you get an artist that actually feels them in the space, and that the artists themselves know that they can't survive until they understand that there's another person listening to them and seeing them and hearing them. Like, I just don't know how moving forward without that relationship it can be sustaining.
Yeah. When you bring peers together who have gone through the eye of the storm and separate lives, and you get them to talk about their craft and life in the industry, it just magic happens. It's something that I would love to work on. We should do it. We should work on it together.
Fuck yeah.
I've seen you host Rage. You did that beautiful special where you hosted all the fun parts of Rage. Wasn't that great?
I loved it.
Oh,
I love, I would dearly love to do that. And you actually had me at hello. Hi. I think that there's a certain type of person whose heart is open to the experience without prejudice that makes that kind of stuff work, which is Molly Meldrum.
yeah.
So Molly Meldrum, we must never underestimate the power of his love for music. It was so true. It was like an arrow. It just went straight to viewers and home viewers who really don't often think themselves cool enough to understand certain music. But actually, when push comes to shove, I'm on a plane and I'm sitting next to, like, that's Amy again. So we're talking about ambulance sniffers. And I got to tell her from sister to sister, I think you're the Bon Scott of Australian music.
Me too. That's a great way to put it.
You are the reincarnation of Bon Scott. And she and I made a connection because I was there when Bon Scott was living. And so I am in a sense, kind of like a connecting fibre to a time in Australian music where she's representing for us now, and then I was a part and engaged with people who were representing for us then. And I just love that tone.
Do you know that the baton that you have passed on to our younger Australian artists is so felt? Like last year when I was at the Arias, I'm on the red carpet and I'm chatting to Alex Leahy and I said, who's someone at the Arias here tonight that you would just die to meet? And she's like, Kate Ceberano, I think we could have a couple of wines. I think I would love to just hear her talk. And then we were backstage at the Arias. We were both about to go and present an award. And I told you about Alex loving you. And I think you two are now DMing.
Yeah. It's funny. Isn't it funny? Like Alex she's a great act. She's a class act as a person. She's got this great ability. Well, I feel like she's sort of born out of the best of Australian live music because she knows how to react to the people around her. I would like to meet her soon. She went overseas and we haven't actually met up. But when we actually do, it's going to be on like Donkey Kong. There'll be lots to say, lots to talk about. The thing that we very rarely talk about when we are together, all the women, whether it could be a lot of contemporary artists as well. Mojo Juju and I have known each other well because I curated her in a festival piece when I was at the Adelaide Cabaret Festival. I had her on funnily enough, I had her on the cover of our magazine because I could see where the world was going in that space, and she is iconic, a powerhouse of a woman, and also telling the immigration story. It's hard for immigrants in this country. We are we're sort of like the sort of one stuck in the middle of things because on the one hand we do have our First Nations people delivering their message and being reacted to in exactly the right way, which is to give them precedence and give them ownership of their community and space and this country. But then the people and the residents and the immigrants who've come here and made it their home as well don't have a voice within this country, as though I'm being really forthright in saying so. And yet they've honourably delivered to the landscape of music and arts and culture as well. So I feel like I'm the voice of the immigrant.
You've taken this on.
A little bit, yeah. Because I don't know where I live or where I belong or who I belong to. I could go back to the Philippines, but I'm not really relevant to the Filipinos. Like that was 2 generations ago. I could go towards my Hawaiian people, but they'd be like, well, okay, but you've never lived here, you've never really had a part, yet Hawaiian music has influenced my entire career as a musician. I was made in Australia. I want to be able to say I'm Australian and feel I have a flag to fly for that, but I just don't know. I'm like the piggy in the middle. Don't know what I am.
Why don't you feel that you can say that?
Because I just don't think we've got enough. We don't have at a level where, let's just even like put it up into the realms of politics, right? Where Australian music is being given a full general Guernsey, where it's all shapes, colours, sizes, age, and let's just say, let's put a percentage of Australian music into Australian public's exposure, like television and radio. Make a minimal amount that can't be less than it to be for the Australians to be exposed to Australian music. And then we would rate ourselves and we would give ourselves some credence and we'd take ourselves into that place where we could look after our elders in music and we could sustain the pubs and clubs that make us strong. I have this very deep and overarching kind of will for Australian music to be as equal to any international act that comes to Australia.
The other short answer to that is racism and colonialism is probably the reason why.
You said it, Bella.
Perhaps feel that, yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like the classic Ked said, isn't it? It's one side is that and one side is the other and we're sort of squished in between.
Yeah.
I totally accept and agree that that's exactly what it should be titled.
And what was that like, coming up as a public figure, a public space, wanting to represent Australia, having obviously close ties to your Filipino heritage and your Hawaiian heritage, but feeling in the middle?
Well, we mentioned off camera, you had a similar experience, or your dad did, about the kind of bleaching out of his ethnicity, and I'm wondering if an animal like me has been created from having to deflect and deny and to forsake my coloured part of me and kind of lean into but I feel very white Australia. Well, I don't actually.
Yeah.
I don't feel anything. I feel just very much like I'm a confluence of all of these spiritual and ancestral paths that have come to this country, and we have become Australian, which for whatever, better, worse, whatever that means, we are here, and we're all trying to elevate the identity of Australia on a global map. And I think we should be united in that. I have become more of a wog as I get older. And I mean, lovingly, I use that term. I don't even know what the word means. All I know is it means a little bit of everything. And I think I actually am more and more ethnic as I've gotten older. I've let that flag fly really high. And I feel very proud to be multiracial. I feel very proud to be representing Australia in that space.
I wonder if it aligns with the fact that you're such a beloved figure in music. And I wonder if you feel safe.
I feel that I have a lot of assurance from Australians that they will travel a journey with me, which is lovely, and that maybe one day I'll get to live out the rest of my days as Tony Bennett, and that would be great.
I think you should.
I know. I would love that.
When you think of your journey that you have been on, the boundary pushing obviously comes to mind. Isn't it amazing what you have done and the vast and differing ventures that you have gone on, even, in the pandemic, like really honing in on your art and then becoming quite a wanted woman in that space, artist in residence and in places as well.
Yeah.
And then, of course, your last record being so much more delving into soul music. How do you see yourself now? Where do you see that you fit in music right now?
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful question because sometimes you have to, I remember listening to David Bowie and he said, it was time to kill off some characters I'd created because they're a burden to me, Ziggy Stardust was done. And in order for me to evolve, I have to actually recalibrate my sense of self to zero and start anew. And I would like to get into a space. I love the beauty of Euro, electro, and I love that. And ironically enough, I said all roads lead back to zero. The dance element of that turns me on. but it's kind of I feel I want to get back to the dance floor, which is really weird. Like, I want to be back in the center of the dance floor. I want that 360 camera above my head. I want to be static but singing my tits off. I heard Jessie Ware doing a song recently.
I love Jessie Ware.
I know.
She's been on this podcast, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
I really love her. There's also Royson. There's a couple of, I want to say middle-aged women, but let's not marginalise them to age, but they just happen to be middle-aged women. Okay, let's just say that. Okay, and they're free. And they're in wearing remarkable designer outfits that are just outrageous. They're filling spaces, they're creating attention, and they're singing this incredible music which elevates your soul. And if you were on a dance floor, it speaks to everyone. And maybe I just want to go back home. I want to go back to that home.
But also, you are of an age and a level now where you probably don't give a fuck like as much about what people might perceive you as, or whether you need to be, I don't know. I mean, I'm probably talking more about feminism as a whole and the aging out of women in our music industry, which is called symbolic annihilation. We have this thing in our music industry when they're, for some reason, over the age of 40, the industry decides, oh, they're not really worthy of like pop and mainstream. Well, I've got 20 examples to give you to prove that that's not true. And I also believe that you have never been, that you've never held more value because of your experience in the industry, because of the contributions that you can give.
Well, that's beautiful, and thank you for that. I think from women younger than me, I plan to learn a lot more about what the world's going to look like going forward. There will be things like, for instance, that term alone, it's freeing for me to hear that someone has a name for it, because it's definitely endemic to our tribe. We're asking women to leave our tribe before they're ready. And even then, if they left, where would they go?
And why would you want them to leave?
Well, I know it's amazing that you do this. You do this learning act in the presence. In fact, you're doing it on stage in front of everyone. You're learning and you're evolving in front of everyone. We were just talking about it this morning, my husband and I. He says sometimes it's freakish how reckless you are on stage with your learning and making errors and then changing your mind and then changing how you want to go about that. And he said, and it's earnest and it makes people feel warm about the journey, right? So you get there and you've got this, it's almost like you go, wow, I've taken flight. I've actually I grew these wings. I grew these feathers are mine. I've just started taking flight and someone shoots you down, right? Actually, with respect to the Ormas, I had this, and I've talked very strong about, this is why I want to work with younger and women who are starting their careers for the first time in their lives and committed to it and how they see the world going forward. This is why I have this conversation with Gypsy and all her singers. I say, what do you need to feel secure and stay true to who you are in the face of provocation? What would you do, right? And at the Ormas, I was given an award and I said, can I just unwrap some things here?
That was a great speech you gave.
I said, there's nowhere else to unwrap this that could be safer. I must talk to you all because I feel I'm confused and in this confusion, I need to be in the presence of peers to work this out. I can't do this on my own. It's too much to sit at home and wonder what ifs or what could I do or how could I do it better? You know, I need to talk to you. I need to tell you.
That's such a great thing.
It's painful.
Yeah, but you were in that safe space, and that was the other thing that I think about when we push women out of the industry. We need that knowledge. We need them to come into these spaces and share these similar insecurities and things like that, but also pass on their experience of going through similar things and how they navigated it, what worked and what didn't. You know, we talked at the top of this about how, you know, some women fall on their own sword. And perhaps if they had listened to their elders, perhaps if they had a curiosity or the elders were given the stage and the platform to pass on that information, they wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you something. Renee was a remarkable human. And I will say this much, and she would tell you the same as well. If you're going to go into this business, you better desire to be strange and an outsider, because just the sheer act of doing what you're doing is so uniquely extreme, you won't become a normal person. So when you become a mature person and you're going to be growing, you don't go back to being a middle class, let's have tea and lunch with the neighbours. You never become that person. You are always marked by the fact of you having chose to do this, and you will be an outsider. It is part of being what we do. I mean, David, I keep going back to David just because he's so exciting to me, that it could be David Bowie, it could be David Byrne, it could be, now who else could it be? I was listening to St. Vincent, right? So she's coming into her second decade where she's been around now for a while, and she's very wise, and we can tell she's very powerful. And there'll be a point now where she burns the capsule of beauty capsule, and she'll go into the next capsule and take launch into that space. When I got to Renee and Renee would talk, she's like, well, my life is very dull right now because I'm not gigging as much. And she's like, I don't know what to do with myself.
Oh.
So what else is there to do? I might just she said, I just guess I'll just get fat and drink wine late at night and talk to nobody about nothing.
And you're like completely against what she'd said in terms of a creative, fulfilling career.
Yeah, I know. So you just don't, I just think we need to have that conversation a lot more and sustain those artists. Like, as I said, she fell on her own sword too. We've all had that as well. That there's liabilities to getting in the business. When times get tough and self-medication, and there's a price to pay for all of that. She'd be the first to tell you. But there was a lot to learn from her as well. I learned a lot from her. I learned a lot about staying steady, staying odd, staying true to her voice. She had some pretty remarkable statements to sort of, as a survivor, to make.
Did that hit home for you when she said you've got to have this desire to be strange? Do you look back in your career and you say, yeah, I've always had it?
Yeah, because if you desire to be liked, that's your kind of like, is it kryptonite, the thing that brought Superman down?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what it does? Is that the kryptonite, or is
so
there
it's
another?
the one thing that would kill him. Yeah. Not that I'm not even a Marvel fan. I just know it from being a kid,
but I think every one of us, I think the superpower to being on the stage is that you that you can, like that offers you a superpower. And then the kryptonite is that desiring that someone tells you when you've done it or that you need to be liked. Sia is another great example. She's like, again,
huge fan of yours, Sia.
Yeah, she is. I'm a huge fan of hers. In fact, that's why she makes me want to go into that David Guetta space, or that sort of like, I want to go into that Euro dance.
With Sia.
Oh my God, stop.
If she can collaborate with Paris Hilton, she's going to collaborate with the one artist that she went to every single show when she was a young girl.
I would dearly love to work with her.
She was
a bit shy to ask. I know. I feel a little bit like that, kind of like, when I heard her say those wonderful things, I was like, oh, wow, oh, wow.
You do not strike me as someone who's shy to ask.
I am actually a bit shy to ask because...
Well, get hubby to do it. Get Lee to do it.
Yeah, okay. That's right. Come on, manager. Let's go see you on the phone. I would dearly love to work with her. I think all roads lead to Sia. That's for certain.
And she's brave.
She's brave.
And she's strange.
And she's strange. And she's potent. And that potency is her superpower. And to my taste, the only time, and like the same thing with me, is just if you've got self-loathing or you've needed some sort of support, or you needed someone to tell you what you already knew about something, it's that delicate little weak point.
You quoted Kurt Cobain once. One of your favourite quotes from him is
oh, yeah.
What would you say it?
Oh, I think, I could be paraphrasing it, but it was always better to be loved for who you are than loved for who... No, better to be hated for who you are.
Yes.
Than loved for who you are not.
Oh, I think anyone listening, if you can take anything out of this, it's that desire to be strange and to be brave and to learn from your career, Kate. You have absolutely gone down paths that some people might not expect, but people that know you when you were coming up and joined I'm Talking would have gone, yep, that's my Kate.
There was a period of time where, and I'm just going to say that this has to happen. Stuart Coupe was talking about this on a panel. He managed Paul Kelly, as you know, Hoodoo Guru's editor of the Rolling Stone, and he written many missives on music and music making and what is the shape, the face of an artist. He said an artist the real one will go into something with a strong and desperate curiosity, and then they bring people with them because it's like almost looking like their intention at looking at an object is so strong and so irresistible. Everyone goes, oh, I want to look at that too. I want to look at that. But he said, but don't be, and their audiences also always stay with them when they change their mind. So if the artist then goes, you know what, I'm actually going to go and write some poetry and go and make a sort of like a beat album over there for just a minute. An audience may or may not love what they're going to do next, but they say, oh, I'll meet up with you down the track when I come back. So half of them may travel with you on that journey. And then he goes off and makes a jazz album, say later. He brings in a new audience, a new public. His early primary public might go, oh, I'll just rest that for a bit because it's not my vibe. But they'll always find you back up again. So you're constantly sort of cycling through this contact with humans that have loved and have invested in you as an artist. I want to make good to the promise that I made as that in that dance space, that there was energy, there was some sort of release. It was, I hope that when I get into that space and I retire there for a short while, it's going to bring people back to the dance floor of my age. It'll bring back a universe of people who don't go to live music anymore, right? Who don't see themselves in that place of their youth. I would love to find that. I don't know how, but I'd love to find that place and get people dancing again.
If anyone can do it, it's you. And I love that you didn't say if, you said when I do that. That is amazing. I think that I could talk to you forever, Kate. Thank you
well,
so
we probably
much.
will. Here's to our television series.
To many more.
You heard it here.
Yeah, Countdown Part 2. Let's bring it on.
Oh, babes, can you imagine? I want that so hard.
A dream.
I'm already sitting here imagining how that could feel.
Yes.
Can you imagine?
And they'd be so relaxed in front of you because you're one of their peers as well.
Well, actually, it's one last final story. Can I tell you?
Yeah.
I had a really, I thought was probably the cutest story in that situation where I was hosting for Max TV, right? Hadn't done many of them. It didn't matter. They were like assured that Kate Ceberano would get us there. And Slash had flown in with Miles Kennedy and they were coming to do their acoustic gig, but they'd come through, they did the long haul, they'd been through New Zealand. They arrived and the record company had a whole slew of like publicity events for them. And if you know that kind of hard, heavy metal world, Miles Kennedy he's just like, he was like the baron of that style of singing. But a voice like that should be preserved, not sitting and waxing on endlessly, or even for that matter, singing at 5 a.m. in the morning after a 40-hour flight that's come through New Zealand. Like, all these things aren't considered.
Yeah.
And he's got a gig and it's just the two of them. And Slash he's protecting his friend. He's like, man, come on, do we really need to do this at this time in the morning? Like, and he's tired and the two of them are really resenting the sort of the enthusiasm and the, hey guys, welcome to Australia. And I'm thinking, oh, this is a shit show. And so I walked up to him and I said, hi, Slash, I'm Kate. I'm an Australian singer. I am not a television host. So if this really goes off the rails, I can't save it. And it's live television.
Amazing.
And you know what he did, which is exactly what I would hope we would in Countdown moving forward. Mm. You'd find that place with people and artists, they felt so safe that they could do this. He turned around, he said, oh, you're an artist? I said, yeah, I'm a singer. And he said, oh, okay. And so camera goes on, it's live, and he goes, Kate Ceberano, it's an honor to meet you. You're such a great singer, and you just wax lyrical about me. And like, oh, it's like, this is such a privilege. Oh, we'll do anything. We'd love you to come and sing with us if you. He just flipped the whole apple cart and made it about music and art. And he gave me my positioning in that space where rather than, which was kind of giving the bird to everyone else who was so important on the set. Like, we're a television show in Australia. We're very important. We're the ones that we host all the most successful. And he said, no, we're a tribe. She's a bird of my feather. We're going to fucking take that there. And he took me there.
Oh,
he took me there.
He had your back just because you were one of him.
And I went, now that is what audiences want to see.
Yeah.
They want to see that. And that's what Countdown used to bring. It was where, you know, the person would come off stage after having sung, sit down on a couch with a pretty average interviewer and say, man, I need to save you because you're pretty. And Elton John's there going, you don't have any idea who I am, you know.
Oh my God.
That would be great. We become selfless in the act of showing great art and let people speak for themselves. That would be sick.
If that is our North Star.
It's our North Star,
as if it's not going to be amazing.
Well, we better go out and spruik for ourselves.
Yeah.
Get that gig.
Yeah. Lee, help us.
Yeah. I want that show and I want it now.
I'll talk to my people. You talk to your people. Let's do this.
That's our opening, our music space. We're going to get like all the electro players in the world just to set up our music space.
And then it's going to take you into the dance world. Like the flow-on effects of this are going to be huge. Sia can be the first guest. Then you guys collaborate. It's great.
My God.
Yeah, it's all happening. Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Bobby.